a black man that's so anti-black you just feel like it's a setup. That's Clarence Thomas, the longest-serving judge on the Supreme Court, and the one most committed to rolling back the very rights that allowed him to rise. And his wife? That's the kind of white woman that's every black woman's worst nightmare. But we'll get to her. So let's start at the beginning. Clarence Thomas was born in 1948 in Pinpoint, Georgia, dirt poor and Jim Crow raised. He grew up speaking Gullah, was raised Catholic, went to seminary, and almost became a priest. But racism followed him everywhere until he flipped. And I don't mean flipped the system, I mean flipped on us. By the time he reached Yale Law School, he started to resent affirmative action. Not the racism that made it necessary, but the fact that white folks assumed he didn't belong. Instead of challenging them, he decided to join them. And in the 1980s, he got cozy with the conservatives. Reagan appointed him to the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. But instead of protecting black workers, this man gutted the very civil rights regulations that he was hired to enforce. Then George H.W. Bush made... Sorry, you can't make this shit up. Then George H.W. Bush made him a Supreme Court justice in 1991. They call it replacing Thurgood Marshall, but he's no replacement. He took the seat. And that's when Anita Hill happened. A brilliant black woman came forward, under oath, and told the Senate Judiciary Committee that Clarence Thomas sexually harassed her at work. He turned around and called it high-tech lynching, thereby weaponizing black pain to cover his own misconduct. And America let him do it. He got confirmed. And ever since, he's been on a mission to dismantle every bit of progress that we've ever made. So what has he done since he's been sitting on the bench? He voted to gut the Voting Rights Act. He voted to overturn Roe v. Wade. He wants to challenge birth control, gay marriage, and privacy rights. He openly signaled that he reversed Brown v. Board if he could twist the logic. And through it all, he barely talks. He lets his rulings do the damage. So let's talk corruption. This man has accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in luxury trips, yacht rides, and tuition payments for his grandnephew, all from conservative billionaire Harlan Crow. He never disclosed them. He said he didn't think he had to. This is the same man who thinks that poor black people should pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Fuck you, Clarence. Now let's talk about Ginny Thomas, his wife. The far-right activist who's literally involved in the January 6th coup attempt. She texted Mark Meadows telling him to stop the steal. She lobbied lawmakers to overturn Biden's win. And she's been a paid operative for some of the most dangerous conservative movements in America. This is the type of woman that'll call the cops on your kid and then cry in court. The type of woman who marries a black man and then thinks it makes her immune. And the type that black women clock instantly. Clarence Thomas is just proof that not every black face in power is for the people. He is the system, wearing our skin. And the longer he sits on that bench, the more damage he does. Not just to black folks, but to anybody who thought that the Constitution was actually a guarantee. Because Clarence Thomas is not fighting for justice. He's fighting for revenge. And unfortunately, we're the collateral.
Clarence Thomas never misses an opportunity to disappoint me. In a 6-3 decision today, the Supreme Court voted to dismantle the Voting Rights Act. 6 conservative justices, including Clarence Thomas, voted to disenfranchise millions of black voters, voters of color all across America. And all of them should be held accountable, don't get me wrong here. But specifically Clarence Thomas, being only one of 2 black justices, the only black man on the court, votes to dismantle the voting rights of his own community? The same community that worked for decades to uplift black voters and black voices in our government, votes to then go undermine all of that work. That's despicable. Am I surprised? No. Am I disappointed? Always. But this issue just really blows my mind. The cognitive dissonance he can have sitting on the highest court of the land, never has to worry about getting elected, makes a decision that makes it so much more difficult for black voices to be amplified in our government. Shame on you, Clarence Thomas. Shame on you.
Clarence Thomas, I hate to break it to you, no matter how many times you try to be a part of the YT crowd, you will never be one of them. Voting against the Voting Rights Act, trying to dismantle the Voting Rights Act as a black man is such a disgrace. You're trying to be a house so bad, it doesn't make sense. So you were able to climb the ladder to get to the top. But then, now that you're at the top, instead of helping your people, you think you're just above it all. I hate to break it to you. When it comes down to it, you would never be one of them. And they would never fully accept you for who you are. They're just using you for your vote. Like, do you understand that? Like, such a dummy. As a black man, being part of the 6 out of 3 people that voted against it, it's just mind-blowing. And I just hope and pray that whatever you're trying to get out of this life, you never get. Whatever dreams and hopes that you have would never come to pass. And I hope your families are so disgraced of you that they want nothing to do with you. Even your child, your son Jamal. Very disgraceful. Like, do you know how hard people had to fight to get the rights and the representation of people that look like them? And for you to just sit your black ugly ass over there to try to like destroy everything that people work so hard for, yeah, you deserve everything and more in hell.
Hi my loves, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much for clicking when you saw this video. So I came across a video of Clarence Thomas where everybody's literally dragging him on social media right now. This man is a black judge and he has been one of the oldest, right, in that seat. Okay, so imagine getting the privilege to actually sit in the midst of people who, you know, make laws in the state or in the country, and you were given the opportunity just because, you know, some people fought for it, and all of a sudden you decide to shut the door, you know, beside you from the other people from entering. That's exactly who Clarence Thomas is and why people are talking about him. Well, guys, welcome back again to the YouTube channel. Let's go watch, then I'll come back with more commentary. Credit belongs to original creators of these videos. Let's go watch.
If Clarence Thomas has 0 haters, I have died and gone to glory. I hate Clarence Thomas because he may be the most hypocritical person to ever live. Clarence Thomas, who might be the most conservative member of the United States Supreme Court, was once a black nationalist and activist. You look at Clarence Thomas now, you wouldn't imagine that he was born in Pinpoint, Georgia in 1948, a predominantly black town founded by freed slaves. You wouldn't imagine that he started elementary school right before Brown v. Board of Education was passed. You wouldn't imagine that in college he founded a black student union, idolized Malcolm X, and protested on behalf of the Black Panthers. You wouldn't imagine that he went to Yale Law School because of an affirmative action program. You wouldn't imagine that he's the one that replaced Thurgood Marshall on the Supreme Court. He was nominated to the Supreme Court in 1991 by Big Bush, and in the last 35 years, he has sat on the wrong end in cases that involve peeling back our rights surrounding affirmative action. A funny story, Clarence actually met his white wife at an affirmative action conference in 1986 because they both opposed affirmative action. The jokes write themselves. Anyway, continue. Birthright citizenship, women's reproductive rights, and our voting rights. Clarence Thomas has been a Supreme Court justice for 35 years, making him the longest tenured justice, meaning that our lives are essentially in the hands of the world's biggest hypocrite.
Clarence Thomas wakes up every day and says rats when his melanin-eating virus that he's building in a laboratory under the Supreme Court doesn't work. One time, Clarence Thomas went to a bar and punched out a mirror, and they're like, why did you do that? He's like, my bad, I was drunk. I thought I saw another black man.
Clarence Thomas had no problem walking through every door that was created for him because of his race. And that gratitude is followed by him shutting the door behind him for everybody else.
If Clarence Thomas isn't an Uncle Tom, then why did he shut the door that he used himself to get to his position for millions of black people across this country? Because by revoking the 1965 Voter Rights Act, he has done exactly that. He has basically burnt the same bridges that he used to get to his successful point for everybody else that's in the same position that he was once in. So my question still remains, is Clarence Thomas considered an Uncle Tom? But what I do know right now is that he is more voting for his class than his culture, because his class is that of the 1%. He believes that he's a part of an elite group rather than remembering the culture that brought him up. Now, I can't speak to that culture, but I can respect it. And I still can't imagine that someone of that culture would then burn the bridges that helped him get to where he wanted to go for millions of black people across this country. How is that possible? And why isn't there a battle cry asking for his resignation for what he's done to his own people?
You can look it up.
Here's a guy who, by his own admission, and there should be no shame in this, by the way, got into Yale Law School because of affirmative action. He apparently is ashamed of it, so much so that once he became a jurist on the courts, he decided his first and foremost obligation apparently was to help usher out the very programs that had opened the door for him. I'm not sure how to think about that except to believe that that is someone who does not have a problem with the system of white supremacy that marginalizes other black folks, as long as he got his. And he got his, and then he got out and basically said, that's it, we're done with that. I think if you look at his rulings, and particularly if you contrast his behavior as a judge and as a justice with the man he replaced on the court, Thurgood Marshall. You know, it's very interesting to see that one of the greatest jurists in American history when it comes to civil rights and when it comes to human rights and progressivism was replaced by one of the most reactionary justices because George H.W. Bush knew that you had to replace the black justice with another black justice. He didn't want to replace him, however, with the black justice that had a connection to the movement, that had a connection to the struggle. So he found one that had no connection to the struggle and, if anything, was ready to spit on the struggle. You look at what Clarence Thomas has said in these voting rights cases. He is perfectly prepared, apparently, to uproot the Voting Rights Act of 1965 because he thinks, as do many of his white colleagues, that we can trust the states that have a history of racism to just do everything right, which of course is absurd. The only reason they've been doing things right lately is because there's a law in place that forces them to do things right. And as Justice Ginsburg said, to say that you can get rid of that law just because it's working right now is like saying that I don't need my umbrella when it's raining because I'm not getting wet. Now, you're not getting wet because you got an umbrella. That's why.
72 years ago today, the Supreme Court handed down the decision that is the foundation of every right that Black Americans fought for and won in the Civil Rights Movement. But one Black man who owes everything to that movement has spent his entire career trying to undo it. That man is Clarence Thomas. On May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court ended racial discrimination in public schools in the case of Brown versus Board of Education. But it would take another decade to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and a year after that, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That movement made Clarence Thomas possible, and Justice Thurgood Marshall must be turning in his grave to see his successor destroy it. The Brown case is what allowed Thomas to become the first Black student at an all-white high school in Georgia. Another case, Loving versus Virginia, would allow him to divorce his Black wife and marry a white woman. And a third case, Sweat v. Painter, guaranteed Black students a seat at the table of legal education, setting the stage for Thomas to attend Yale Law School. The civil rights movement gave Clarence Thomas every opportunity in his life. Even his current job as a Supreme Court justice came because of affirmative action. And how did he repay that debt? By spending decades on the court dismantling the very laws and policies that made his life possible. Just in the past few weeks, he voted to allow two southern states, Louisiana and Alabama, to take away majority Black congressional districts. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Clarence Thomas is 77 years old, spent almost half his life, 35 years, longer than any of his colleagues, ruining our lives as a Supreme Court justice. He's the poster boy for why we need term limits on the Supreme Court. And he's one more reason why we can't sit out on any election, because the people elected are the people who select and approve the judges with lifetime tenure. How sad that on this solemn anniversary, one of the greatest threats we face is from a bitter Black man who forgot where he came from.
I have seen a lot of people actually act like this. You know, when people say that we are literally our own problem, I don't blame them at all, seriously, because over and over and over, people have literally shown that we have our own problems. We are our own problems as Black people. Now, within the Black American community, nobody actually expected him to do this. Even though he's human, people could literally, he has done things in the past that will, some people are not shaken by what he has done recently because they expected it from him. But yeah, people are still giving benefit of that. Why? He could have done something better, but he decided to vote against civil rights. Okay, Civil Rights Act, okay, that have governed the country for years. These are laws that Black Americans, their ancestors, literally fought for. And this man was given opportunity after the other judge resigned and he was brought in. And this man, instead of him, okay, standing by that legacy and trying to, build, the face of Black people, okay, in there and promote Blackness, the Black culture and everything, he decided to stand against his own people. And what baffles me is the fact that not only Black people are calling him out, including white people you feel that are white supremacists, who you actually thought they were never going to talk anything about it. Everybody is shocked. Literally, people are literally shocked seeing that this man could do something like this. Okay, and some people are saying, oh, I actually hope that you don't lose your job, because if you do, a lot of Black people are going to go out on the street and celebrate. people are literally going to celebrate because people are going to like, but you actually thought you were white because you have started dining with them. He has seen himself as one of the elite, like, of course, yeah, let's put it there. He's actually one of the elite. So he's actually in the class of 1%. And instead of you making laws or supporting laws that will promote your own culture, your own people, you decided to, you know, promote rate to the cis agendas. Okay, now people are digging in and bringing out his past, marrying his first wife who was, and divorcing to marry someone who is, and that alone shows you a whole lot about this person. And you know, some of the things that people are literally talking about, it's quite unfortunate. Like seeing some of these videos online, I just wonder, like, how would he even think that, you know, he's safe, or his children, his grandchildren are safe? Like, because whatever laws that are passed actually affect him, his grandchildren. Okay, let's just take him out of the equation. Talk about his grandchildren, maybe not his children, but his grandchildren, his entire generations to come. They will fall under, you know, they will go through, you know, whatever laws that he has passed. And what legacy are you leaving behind? That's one of the things that actually come to my mind when I see people, you know, supporting policies that doesn't even make sense, that does not promote who they are, promote their culture, promote anything. I am so shocked. Like, I am literally so shocked when I see some of these people supporting agendas that does not promote blackness in any way. Okay, it doesn't make sense. Okay, why don't you just support your own people? We have our own problem. I don't know how you guys want to see it, but I believe that 1% of the people who have gotten access to speak for black folks in the national level, in the global stage, end up, you know, humiliating them or denying their own culture. It doesn't even make sense. Just because they have arrived, that doesn't make sense. Really, that doesn't really make sense. Anyway guys, I'm going to end it here, but I'd love to hear your own take as well. Let's talk about it. Credit belongs to original creators of these videos. Please do well to like, subscribe, share, and drop your own take in the comment section. What do you think about today's video in general? Let's talk about it in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all on my next. Thank you so much guys for watching. See you all next time. Bye bye loves.